Welcome to the Stoked Bloke Show, people. I'm Barton Lynch. I am the Stoked Bloke. Today, we're coming to you from the Pipeline Studios, a courtesy of a New Earth project. My cohort, Peter PK King, here in the studio with me. And it's been an interesting week since we last did a podcast. Obviously, we had a little break for a while there with a lot of travel. Came back and looked at the surfing world. And then since that show, in only a week, some big things have happened.
What's happened, Bart?
People have lost their jobs. Heads have rolled.
Anybody that matters to pro surfing?
Well, Eric Logan, the CEO?
CEO, I think.
CEO.
Front man. He was the front man.
Yeah, he was the front man. And running the show, Eric Logan, came from the Oprah Winfrey channel, I suppose.
When people had an issue with the WSL, it wasn't really him. He's the face man.
That's right. And I suppose the biggest question that comes from his termination, besides why was he terminated, which is a bit of a mystery, and I've spoken to my contacts at WSL, inside WSL, and it was very tight-lipped. All we're going to say is what we've officially said, and that is he's terminated as of now, immediately. So he was there in Brazil for the event. You were telling me at the press conference he had a Felipe Toledo tattoo T-shirt.
Yeah.
And suggested he could award him the end of event prize winners trophy.
Yeah,
that T-shirt.
He was planning on being there the whole event, of course.
Something transpires while he's there. He loses his job on the spot.
And no answer to us why.
No reasoning from inside. I suggested to my contact, it would suggest to me that there may have been personal behaviour involved, and they said, well, we can't say that. It may suggest that, but I'm not saying that. The word on the street is that perhaps there was some, who knows why he's there, but the question then becomes,
does anything change?
Does anything change with a new CEO?
No.
What do you think?
Absolutely not.
And I agree with Peter King. I believe nothing changes. I believe that the ownership team, as they are referred to, drive the agenda, drive the narrative, and generally position the sport where they're comfortable with it. And as you said, Eric Logan was a face for all of that. He took a lot of blows in the last couple, especially off the back of the Surf Ranch controversy, and he was being blamed for all sorts of stuff. And as you said, in my small encounters with him, he was always very nice to me, always said my door's open, let me know, never really replied to much, never really communicated much outside of that. I too never received any compliments from management or anyone in the WSL for the job you were doing as a commentator.
Yeah.
And I once said to Potts, I said, do you get any feedback today? He goes, I've never heard one positive word. I went, what? He goes, I've been here all that time. No one's ever told me I'm riffing. I'm doing a good job.
Yeah.
He said, don't expect any feedback. You won't get any. And I was like, well, okay. So there is that.
That's their culture. That's the culture of the way they run it at WSL. Nobody likes the Final Five. Nobody likes the cut. They did this all to save money. They're not listening to the fans. They're not listening to the surfers. So it's a very belligerent culture over there.
And whoever does replace, the responsibility of that person will be to make surfing cool again.
Well, it's not going to happen.
It's lost its core audience. All I hear from the core all the time is, I don't watch it anymore, I'm not interested, because they've been offended by the direction the sport's been taken.
Well, the WSL has lost its luster, but surfing hasn't.
Surfing certainly has not. And when you look at all of the different components and projects and events and pieces that are a part of the big surfing picture, it does put the world tour into a place where it's one product.
It's just one product. You look at all these surfers who are making a living not on tour. Nathan Florence, J.O.B., Koa Smith, Koa Rothman, Kai Lenny. I mean, all these big wave surfers, all these nuanced surfers, these longboarders, a lot of women, vloggers, all these people doing social media, kind of pro surfing, Zeke. There's a lot of people that are just making it happen without WSL being involved in their life at all.
Our good mate Koa Smith kind of dipped his toe in the water with those guys and really doesn't need it.
He went on the WSL CS tour, didn't do great, and just disappeared for a year. It was such a value loss for him to pursue a WSL career.
And it's an interesting point, because I remember when you were on the tour, and this is pre-webcast, where you would send a postcard home to your mum going, I made a quarter here and a semi. But in your mind, living in the bubble that is the world tour, you think everything matters, and you think everyone knows, and you think it's so important in the context of the world, and then you get out of the tour and you retire from it and you get a different perspective, as I've had the good fortune too, and go, well, it's really quite small, isn't it? You know, and the challenge for WSL, I suppose, was to create a business model that was viable, and it worked. In the process of doing that, they alienated their core market largely. The Groms and stuff, there's still people that love it, but I think they watch it because there isn't an option. It's the world tour. But they've got to make it cool again. It needs to have cultural integrity. WSL needs to focus on what is not making them money, but what delivers to the surfing world cultural integrity in its sport. And if the sport has cultural integrity, the core market's in place, you create a business model that's stable, that sustains itself and works with that integrity in place, and then everything else is cream. But I don't know that, you know, private ownership would suggest that it needs to be a business and it needs to make profit and all of that. If it was a sporting organisation that was committed to running a fantastic world tour, not necessarily profiting and making money, then it could maybe have a business model that suited and took care of the culture, rather than trying to find other areas to make money out of and going outside of the culture, alienating it. And the word on this street from my contact in there was that numbers are good, money's good, and it must be another audience that they've sort of tapped into or opened up that allows them that opportunity. Do you believe that's true or not?
If you read their social media comments, which is their hardcore crew, people hate the WSL. Now, social media can be a wicked place.
Yes, it is.
And people can kind of write snarky, mean things when they probably don't mean that in real life. You could probably soften everything by 30%, but they're getting away with it online. You know, keyboard warriors.
Yes.
But there's a lot of good points being made on the social media in between the straight hate.
Yeah.
They don't respond to any of it. They don't notice any of it. They don't do a good job promoting the surfers. So they do a really bad job at communicating across social media what their product is. It's almost like they're hiding behind their veil, and they're telling you numbers are good, blah, 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 because they're not even dealing with the real surf crowd. No. I don't even know why they remotely try and appeal to hardcore surfing, because they've completely ripped that out of...
And maybe they're not. Maybe it's not even on the agenda. It'd be interesting to know. You know, we know that ISA's mission statement is to make the world a better place through surfing. You go, okay, sweet, that all, you know, makes sense. And from that, you judge the actions around that mission statement.
The tentacles of the ISA reach so far across the globe with such a noble mission. It's still competitive surfing. There's a loser and a winner. Yeah. But they really go hard to reach out across and connect.
Yeah. While the sport in general, they believe and they say is in a strong position, doesn't feel like that from the outside, but maybe we're too close to judge it. So we both reckon Eric Logan here, Eric Logan gone, tomatoes, tomatoes. Yeah. Potatoes, potatoes. It's a really, we don't necessarily see change and hope and things changing dramatically given him his retrenchment or he's losing his position there. We live in hope, mate. We love the tour.
Well, the comments we come up with are because we want to see it back to its good form.
And the one thing they need to do is change the judging. They've come in, they've changed so many things, and the judging's still exactly the same. We've said this before. It's the area that needs an overhaul. It needs to be recreated, reinvented to make it more interesting and more create that cultural integrity in the decisions they make, and then they could go from there. But time will tell on that front. Eric Logan gone. Who is the next one? Who will be the next CEO?
Do you have a picture of him?
I've got a picture of someone that they sent for me who may be it.
People were mentioning your name. That's Milton from The Simpsons. I like surfing.
He's ready for his new CEO position. I got a good laugh out of that one. you may just end up being a puppet for an ownership group.
Yeah. Well, people were mentioning your name online. Oh, make Barton Lynch. But the way the current structure is, it would be pointless. You would go in and you'd be asked to be a front man for a bunch of things you don't support.
Yes.
What people really want is a change. They want,
Yes.
the tour winner with all the points to be the champion at the end. They want it to end in Hawaii at Pipeline. They want these things back. You're the CEO tomorrow. You can make any changes you want. You get a huge salary. What are the first 5 things you're doing?
First 5 things I'm doing is connecting with the surfers themselves and seeing how they feel, because I'm not sure how Carissa Moore feels, how they feel. My gut instinct is I get rid of the final 5 straight away, move it back to a calendar year finishing at Pipeline, 100%. I would then concentrate the majority of my efforts in the judging. My contact, when I told them how I feel you should do it and how it should be, the panel should be Shane Dorey, CJ and Mick Fanning, he goes, "You'll never get that." I said, "You give me the job, I'll get them." I said, what they need to do is reposition what it means to be a judge. And rather than it being a job for someone that with all due respect, might have failed in their attempts to be a pro surfer or came on judging through regional things in their home country and grew to be a judge on the tour.
They weren't a world champion.
You need the founding fathers, the most relevant current founding fathers, to be passing on the traditions of what is good surfing. That needs to be a deliberate lineage. It needs to be deliberately positioned so that good surfing has that chance to grow and we don't have the controversies we have around it now. Because if Mick Fanning's telling me I won or lost my heat or I got this score and why I got that score, I'm listening. Not going to argue. You know what I mean? And so I would spend the majority of my time and effort in and around the judging criteria, and I would bring respect and credibility to it, and I would get the best people WSL's money could buy. They would be the highest rated, most ranked, most respectful, calm, controlled individuals, able to recognise emotional responses in the heat of a moment within themselves, able to express why and how they gave scores, use them to create the education and the awareness around why scores were given and what the direction we're taking surfing is, because it's a big sort of void at the moment. No one really knows, and consequently I feel like in Brazil we saw some big 9s and big 10s for one big air moves. And that was in part a response to the backlash and the outcries around not rewarding performance surfing. So in the end, you can't help but respond as a judge to all of that criticism, all that energetic. So it needs to be fixed. That to me is the main thing.
You've got one more to make 5.
I would not sell alcohol through the WSL. I would recognise that what we're doing as a sport is promoting the sport largely to children, and they're coming up through the ranks, and those kids need to be guarded from alcohol. Alcoholism is a disease. Alcohol is a poison, and to be promoting it through the sport, and that's what I said to my contact on the phone when he told me times were good and money was good and it was a sustainable business model that they created. I said, I'd like to see the books after you take out all the alcohol money and if you can stay sustainable without alcohol. And then I kind of went to, what about the energy drinks? How good are they for people? Are you promoting drinks to people that might not be so good for people's health? So that's what I would do. That last thing would be I'd commit to not taking alcohol dollars for surfing events.
Wow. Barton Lynch for commissioner. Maybe, so...
I don't want to...
Of course you don't want the job, but
no.
It just goes to show you, people want a real change.
Yes.
A lot of people would echo your sentiments. Mm-hmm. No one's looking to fix a WSL. We want something new.
Well, and that's an interesting point, isn't it? Because everything, IPS, ASP, everything has a life, a shelf life. And it's interesting to see where that, where is WSL's shelf life up? Yesterday, we had the paddle out and the celebration of the life of the great Dane Kealoha, the great Dane, and one of the most incredible surfers ever. To watch his career through the highs and the lows of life, a life lived. It's the thing that I always come back to is there's those surfers, Dane Kealoha on a dream tour, is a daunting prospect, a definite world title contender, 100% world titles coming his way.
Back then when they had to start pro surfing, they had to surf some small waves.
The idea was that they were going to build a sport. We were going to go to city locations. They're going to put bleachers up on the beach. They're going to have judges and scoring and prize money and create a sport. And so, we're at Huntington Beach and Bondi and Japan, some of those waves in Japan. And, we're surfing a lot of small waves. And that was the thing that I really respected and saw Dane through the twin fins and his application to the small wave part of what he had to learn and had to do. And it's always a challenge for people coming out of Hawaii. I think we even see it with John. You know what I mean today? That, once the waves are real, those guys are in their element. Back on that tour, Dane Kealoha had to adapt, had to create equipment that would carry his bulky, powerful frame along, and he created amazing equipment, and he used to get a boogie on in little waves that was so unique and so cool. And that's the lasting memory I have, is his adaptation and his work ethic to commit to that tour and to adapt to those small wave programs, and he did that really well. While we know he did all the the amazing wave stuff really well, his small wave competitive surfing was on world-class level as well. Yeah, it was a really beautiful send-off, fitting for a man of his royal status in our culture and community, and particularly here in Hawaii. So see you on the other side, mate. Thanks for everything. So besides Eric Logan getting booted out of Brazil,
you predicted a goofy foot Brazilian would win the men's division.
Not hard, eh? But I was thinking Gabriel Italo, and one of them was going to win it. But I got it right in the end because Iago Dora came through and won his first CT event ever.
Can't believe that's his first win.
And he's the coolest cat going, isn't he? He's the nicest, coolest, most respectful, just a good kid, good human, good grommet. And to see him win, see him up on the shoulders and get his day while so many of his countrymen had had their day, I loved that. I thought it was just fantastic. Got that 10-point ride in the final, beat Ethan Ewing, who is continuing to be super consistent, always there, always placing, putting himself in position for that final five.
Who are the top five?
I'll give you the men's right now. Took a little photo of it so we can...
It's interesting who's not in that top five.
It's more to the point. So number 1, Felipe Toledo. Number 2, Griffin Colapinto, followed by Ethan Ewing. Joel Chianca slipped back to 4th after an early lead, but still in the top 5, so that's solid. And then Iago Dora brings his way into the top 5.
No John, no Gabby.
And then Jack. You look at John in 6th, Gabby in 7th, Jack Robbo in 8th, Leonardo 9th, Ryan Callan in 10, and then Italo in 11th, and then you go all the way to 16th for Kanoa Igarashi.
There's only 2 more events?
That's right. We've got J-Bay next, and then Chopu. And so that's going to be really interesting.
Where's Slater? Off the board, 21?
He's 23.
23.
Down the bottom there, obviously didn't front in Rio, had... Sinusitis. I mean, we're starting to wonder about all these, these things that competitors get when they don't want to go to an event.
You could say it was Brazilitis, but I mean, I talked to him and he legit was sick.
Well, there you go. Kelly out. Jadson got in. He did well in the event, so it was great for him.
Out. He took out the top seeds.
And it's funny.
Jaddy.
Then he went over to
Bolito and lose his first round.
Where the Challenger Series is now, where it really matters. Because you want to qualify and be at all the events, not just one that you get into because Kelly's there and you lose first round. So
he got no points in Brazil.
But
he got the money.
And something about peaking at the right time and saving your focus for the right events. So the Challenger Series is in Bolito. The women in Rio, Caitlin Simmers.
That's amazing.
Amazing. Teenager.
Those waves were
ripping
not easy.
Again.
Real bumpy and
lumpy.
Terrible venue.
It's a great venue at the other end when that right turns on.
Yeah, well.
Top 5 for the women. Caitlin surfed away into 5th place, as Iago did. So both those guys with their wins going into the top 5. Molly Picklum in 4th, which is where Zhao is after leading for so long. So very similar there. Caroline, Tyler Wright 2nd, Carissa in 1st. So that's your top 5 for the women. Just outside that,
Betty Lou.
Stephanie is in 6th with Tatiana. And then Lakey, Gabrielle O'Brien, Betty Lou, and Joanne DeFay outside of that. So obviously not as much.
That's funny. There's only one page of women because the WSL is so into women's surfing that they only have half the women, half the number of competitors.
Which is interesting, isn't it?
Because it's all about women. They want good waves, and they want to
We all
shine.
want.
So in a 10-event tour, 3 or 4, you combine the women with the men at venues that can handle that and have a guaranteed run of waves.
Yeah.
But other than that, give them their own events.
Because you're trying to minimise the field to capitalise on the event window and
You
get
want
swells
waves.
that come in and get waves. But if you've got both the men and the women at those locations together, it's taking up time.
Double the amount of women on tour and have their own events, please.
Fair show. Fair
See,
say.
I'm
I like
talking
it.
to the future commissioner of some world tour, probably not the WSL, but something.
No, I reckon I like the idea of the lobbyists paying me money.
Yeah.
Well, that part, that
Now
could
he
work.
wants to be in politics.
You know what I wanted to do was a little update on my video game, Barton Lynch Pro Surfing.
Yeah, I'm ready to play.
Obviously, we've talked about it. People know that it's coming. It's looking like landing in October.
You got
at
some
this point
heavy
in time.
hitters in there that I can play at.
Yago Dora.
Wow.
Just made top 5, won the event, and in the 2 years that he's been with us and on the game, has taken his career to another level. Nathan Florence, same deal, one of the most interesting surfers in the world, charging waves, also on the game. On the women's side, Felicity Palmatier, just going great guns in the big waves in her field of expertise, on the WSL commentary, on what is that show in Australia? She just did Survivor. She was on did Survivor in Australia. So her profile's gone through the roof. Vahini Fierro,
The future Olympic champion.
potentially with Carly Vast, both qualifying through those ISA games. So Solly Bailey, Clay Marzo, Mahina Maeda, the people that we signed 2 years ago have continued to evolve their careers to the place where now we look and go, wow, we're glad we got those guys.
Mahina Maeda, you mean the girl that just wrapped us up in jiu-jitsu training?
Exactly. the Olympian and jiu-jitsu. Well,
That's
she
our coach.
kicks our butt, that's
That's
for
our
sure.
coach.
Yeah, we had a great little session, That was fun. So the game has just passed all of its PlayStation qualifications and gone through that process, and we're right at the very end of the Xbox process. Then we'll go to market with the game, with the marketing and promote it, but looking like an October release for Barton Lynch Pro Surfing. So I just wanted to give you an update on that and thank those surfers who signed with us those couple of years ago and have been with us, and for their continued success that they continue to bring to themselves and to the game. So that's a stoker. And on that note, people, we're going to thank you for tuning in. Thank you, PK, for being there and sharing the conversation with me. We love you guys. We hope you have a great day, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.